Synopsis of the 13th tablet. Royal cities sprout with sacred precincts for the gods. Demigods serve as kings and priests in palaces and temples. Marduk promises his royal followers an eternal afterlife. In Sumer, Inanna encourages belief in resurrection. Celestial omens and foretelling oracles gain followings. Marduk proclaims the coming age of the ram as his sign. Ningizida builds stone observatories to show otherwise. Insurrections, wars, and invasions destabilize Enlilite lands. The mystery emissary appears to Enlil, foretells a calamity. Instructs Enlil to select a worthy man to lead survival. Enlil chooses Ibram, scion of priestly royal family. Armies raised by Nabu attempt to seize the spaceport. Overruling Enki, the gods resort to weapons of terror. Ninurta and Nergal obliterate the spaceport and sinning cities. The drifting nuclear cloud brings death to all in Sumer. In the third region, civilized mankind did not fully blossom. What to Inanna was entrusted she neglected, other domains not to her granted, in her heart she coveted. When from Enki, at the count of 1,000 years, kingship away was taken, who the calamity by the end or the next millennium could foresee? Who the disaster would have prevented? That in less than a third of one shar a calamity unknown would befall, who could foretell? By Inanna was the bitter end started. Marduk as Ra with destiny tangled. Ninurta and Nergal the unspeakable end with their own hands delivered. Why was Inanna with her granted domain not satisfied? Why to Marduk did unforgiving she remain? Journeying between Enki and Arata, Inanna restless and ungratified was. For her beloved Dumuzi she still mourned, her love's desire unquenched remained. When she flew about in the sun rays, Dumuzi's image she saw, shimmering and beckoning. In the nighttime, in dream visions, he appeared. I will return, he was saying. The glories of his domain in the land of two narrows to her he was promising. In the sacred precinct of Enki, a house for nighttime pleasure she established. To this Giganu young heroes on the night of their weddings with sweet words she lured. Long life, a blissful future to them she promised. That her lover Dumuzi was she imagined. Each one in the morning in her bed was found dead. It was at that time that the hero Banda, left for dead, alive to Enki returned. By the grace of Utu, of whose seed he was, did Banda from the dead return. A miracle, excited Inanna shouted. My beloved Dumuzi to me came back. In her abode Banda was bathed, with a sash a fringed cloak on him was fastened. Dumuzi, my beloved, she called him. To her bed with flowers bedecked she lured him. When in the morning Banda was alive, with joy Inanna shouted. The power of not dying in my hands was placed, immortality by me is granted. To call herself a goddess, Inanna decided the power of immortality it implied. Nanar and Nergal, Inanna's parents, by her proclamation were not pleased. Enlil and Ninurta by Inanna's words were disconcerted. Utu, her brother, was bemused. The dead to revive is not possible, Enki and Ninharzag to each other said. In the lands of Ki Engi, the people there good fortune praised. The gods are among us. Death they can abolish. So to each other the people said. On the throne of Enki, Banda, his father, in Merkar, succeeded. Lugal, great man, his title was. The goddess Ninsun of Enlil's seed took him to be her spouse. The hero Gilgamesh, their son, on the throne of Enki, Lugal, Banda followed. As the years passed and Gilgamesh older grew, of life and death to his mother Ninsun he spoke. About the death of his forebears, though of Anunnaki descent, he wondered. Do gods die? His mother he asked. Shall I too, though 2/3 divine, as a mortal over the wall climb? So to her he said. As long as on earth you abide, the death of an earthling will you overwhelm, Ninsun to her son said. But if to Nibiru you will be taken, long life thereon you will attain. To take Gilgamesh aloft to Nibiru journey, Ninsun to Utu the commander appealed. Endlessly Ninsun to Utu appealed, day after day with him she pleaded. Let Gilgamesh to the landing place go, Utu in the end agreed. To guide and protect him, Ninharzag a double of Gilgamesh fashioned. Enkidu, as the Enki created, was he called. Of a womb he was not born, blood in his veins was not. With the comrade Enkidu, Gilgamesh to the landing place journeyed. Utu, with oracles, his progress oversaw. At the entrance to the cedar forest, its fire-belching monster their way blocked. With trickery that they the monster confused, to pieces it they broke. When the secret entrance to the tunnels of the Anunnaki they found, by the bull of heaven, a creature of Enlil, with deathly snorts they were challenged. To the gates of Anuki the monster them chased. At the city's ramparts by Enkidu it was smitten. When Enlil this heard, with agony he cried. In the heavens of Anu was his wailing heard. For in his heart Enlil well knew, bad indeed was the omen. For having the bull of heaven slain, to perish in waters Enkidu was punished. Gilgamesh, having by Ninsun and Utu been instructed of the slaying, was absolved. Still, the long life of Nibiru seeking, Gilgamesh to proceed to the place of the chariots by Utu was permitted. After many adventures, the land of Tilmun, the fourth region, he reached. Through its subterranean tunnels he proceeded. In a garden of precious stones, Sasudra he met. The events of the deluge Sasudra to Gilgamesh related. The secret of long living to Gilgamesh he revealed. A plant in the garden's well was growing. Sasudra and his spouse from getting old it prevented. Unique of all the plants on earth it was. By it a man full vigor can regain. Man at old age is young again. This is the plant's name, Sasudra to Gilgamesh said. A gift of Enki with Enlil's blessing on the Mount of Salvation to us was granted. When Sasudra and his spouse were asleep, Gilgamesh to his feet stones tied. Into the well he dived, the plant of being young again he grasped and uprooted. With the plant in his satchel, through the tunnels he hurried, to Anuki he made his way. When he tired and was asleep, a snake by the plant's fragrance was attracted. The plant did the snake snatch from the sleeping Gilgamesh. With the plant it vanished. In the morning, his loss discovering, Gilgamesh sat and wept. To Anuki empty-handed he returned, as a mortal therein he died. 7 more kings in Anuki after Gilgamesh reigned, then its kingship to an end came. Precisely when the count of 1,000 earth years was completed it was. To Urim, the city of Nanar and Ningal, was kingship of the first region transferred. To all these matters that in the other regions were occurring, Marduk much heed gave. By Inanna's dreams and visions, to Dumuzi's domain alluding, Ra was disturbed. To counteract Inanna's schemes of expansions, he was determined. In the matters of resurrection and immortality, he found much to ponder. The thought of divine godship to him greatly appealed. To be a great god himself, he announced. By what to Gilgamesh in good measure an earthling was permitted, Ra was angered. But a clever way wherewith the loyalty of kings and people to retain, he deemed it. If demigods, the gateway to immortality, are shown, let this to the kings of my region apply. So did Marduk in the second region, by the name Ra known, to himself words say, let the kings of the region Neteru offspring be, to Nibiru in an afterlife journey. So did Ra in his realm decree. The gods how to build tombs facing eastward he taught. To the prescribes a long book he dictated. The afterlife journey in detail in it was described. How to reach the Duat, the place of the celestial boats, in the book was told. how to there, by a stairway to heaven, to the imperishable planet journey. Of the plant of life partake, the waters of youth to satiation drink. Of the coming of the gods to earth by Ra were the priests taught. Gold is the splendor of life to them, he said. The flesh of the gods it is, to the kings Ra said. To make expeditions to the Abzu and the lower domain, gold to obtain, the kings he instructed. When by the force of weapons the kings of Ra lands not theirs conquered, his brothers' realms he invaded. Their ire he calls to arise and grow. What is Marduk up to, the brothers each other asked, that over us he tramples? To their father Enki they appealed. To Ptah his father Ra did not listen. To capture all adjoining lands, the kings of Magan and Meluha Ra directed. To be the master of the four regions was his heart's plan. The earth is mine to rule, so adamantly to his father he said. Now this is the account of how Marduk, supreme himself declared, and Babili built, and how Inanna, warrior kings commanding, blood made flow, and sacrileges allowed. After kingship to from Enki was transferred, Nannar and Ningal on the people smiled. As his rank of 30 befitting, as the god of the moon, Nannar was worshipped. As the count of the moon months in a year, 12 festivals each year he decreed. To each of the 12 great Anunnaki a month and its festival were dedicated. Throughout the first region to the Anunnaki gods, great and lesser ones, shrines and sanctuaries were built. The people to their gods could directly pray. In the first region, civilization from Enki to other neighboring lands spread. In cities of man, local rulers as righteous shepherds were designated. Artisans and farmers, shepherds and weavers, their products far and wide exchanged. Laws of justice were decreed, contracts of trade, of espousal and divorce were honored. In schools the young ones studied, scribes, hymns, and proverbs and wisdom recorded. Abundance and happiness were in the lands, quarrels and encroachments there were also. All the while Inanna in her skyship from land to land roamed. Near the upper sea with Utu she frolicked. To the domain of her uncle Ishkur she went. Dudu, beloved, she called him. To the people who in the upper plain of the two rivers dwelt, Inanna took a liking. The sound of their tongue she found pleasant. To speak their language she learned. By the name of the planet Lahamu, in their tongues Ishtar they called her. Uruk, her city, Enki they called. Dudu, as Adad in their language they pronounced. Sin, Lord of oracles, her father Nannar they named. City by them was called. Shamash, bright sun, in their tongue Utu they called. Him too they worshipped. Enlil, by them father Enlil was called. Nippur, by them was Nibruki. Kienji, land of the lofty watchers, Shumer in their language was named. In Shumer, the first region, kingship between the cities was rotated. In the second region, diversity by Ra was not permitted, alone to reign he wished. The eldest of heaven, firstborn who is on earth, thus by the priest to be known he wanted. The foremost from the earliest times, so he decreed in the hymns to be called, Lord of eternity, he who everlastingness has made, over all the gods presiding. The one who is without equal, the great solitary and sole one. So did Marduk as Ra, above all other gods himself in place. Their powers and attributes to himself he by himself assigned. As Enlil I am for lordship and decrees, as Ninurta for the hoe and combat. As Adad for lightning and thunder, as Nannar for illuminating the night. As Utu I am Shamash, as Nergal over the lower world I reign. As Gibel the golden depths I know, whence copper and silver come I have found. As Ningazida numbers and their count I command. The heavens my glory bespeak. By these proclamations the Anunnaki leaders were greatly alarmed. To their father Enki the brothers of Marduk spoke. Nergal to Ninurta their concerns conveyed. What has you overpowered? Enki to his son Marduk said. Unheard of are your pretensions. The heavens my supremacy bespeak, Marduk his father, Enki answered. The bull of heaven, Enlil's constellation sign, by his own offspring was slain. In the heavens the age of the ram, my age, is coming. Unmistakable the omens are. In his abode, in Eridu, the circle of the 12 constellations Enki examined. On the first day of spring, the beginning of a year, sunrise was carefully observed. In the constellation stars of the bull was the sun that day rising. In Nibriki and Urim, Enlil, and Nannar the observations made. In the lower world, where the instrument station had been, Nergal the results attested. Still, remote was the time of the ram. The age of the bull of Enlil it still was. In his domains, Marduk in his assertions did not relent. By Nabu he was assisted. To domains not his emissaries he sent, to the people that his time has come to announce. To Ningazida the Anunnaki leaders appealed. How to the people the skies to observe to teach? In his wisdom stone structures Ningazida devised. Ninurta and Ishkur to erect them helped. In the settled lands near and far, the people how the skies to observe they taught. The sun in the constellation of the bull was still rising to the people they showed. With sorrow did Enki these ongoings watch, how fate the rightful order twisted he pondered. After the Anunnaki as gods themselves declared, on mankind's support they instead are dependent. In the first region to unify the lands under one leader the Anunnaki decided. A warrior king they desired. To Inanna, of Marduk the adversary, the task of the right man to find they entrusted. A strong man whom on her journeys she had met and loved, Inanna to Enlil indicated. Arbakad of 4 garrisons the commander was his father, a high priestess his mother was. Scepter and crown Enlil him gave. Sharukin, righteous regent Enlil him appointed. As on Nibiru once was done, a new crown city, the lands to unify, was established. Agade, the unified city they named it, not far from Kishi it was located. By Enlil was Sharukin empowered, Inanna with her weapons of brilliance his warriors accompanied. All the lands from the lower sea to the upper sea to his throne obedience gave. At the borders of the 4th region to protect it his troops were stationed. With a cautious eye, Ra on Inanna and Sharukin constantly gazed. Then as a falcon on his prey he pounced. From the place where Marduk the tower to heaven reaching to build had attempted, sacred soil from there to Agade did Sharukin move, therein the heavenly bright object to implant. Enraged did Marduk to the 1st region rush, with Nabu and followers to the tower's place they came. Of the sacred soil I alone the possessor am, by me shall a gateway of the gods be established. So did Marduk vehemently announce, instructions the river to divert to his followers he gave. Dikes and walls in the place of the tower they raised. The Isagil, house of the utmost god, for Marduk they built. Babili, the gateway of the gods, Nabu in his father's honor named it. In the heart of the Eden, in the midst of the 1st region, Marduk himself established. Inanna's fury no boundary knew, with her weapons on Marduk's followers death she inflicted. The blood of people as never before on earth like rivers flowed. To his brother Marduk, Nergal to Babili came, for the sake of the people Babili to leave him he persuaded. Let us peacefully wait for the true signs of heaven, Nergal to his brother said. To depart Marduk agreed, from land to land the skies to watch he traveled. Amun, the unseen one, in the 2nd region was Ra henceforth called. For a while was Inanna appeased, 2 sons of Sharukin his peaceful successors were. Then on the throne of Agade Sharukin's grandson ascended, Naram Sin. By Sin loved he was called. In the 1st region Enlil and Ninurta absent were. To the lands beyond the oceans they went. In the 2nd region Ra was away, as Marduk in other lands he traveled. Her chance in her hands to seize all powers Inanna envisioned, Naram Sin to seize all lands she commanded. to march against Magan and Meluhah, Marduk domains, Naram-Sin she instructed. The sacrilege of Earthling's army through the fourth region, passing Naram-Sin, committed. Magan he invaded, the sealed Eker, house which like a mountain is, to enter he attempted. By the sacrileges and transgressions Enlil was infuriated, upon Naram-Sin and Agade a curse put. By a bite of a scorpion did Naram-Sin die. By the command of Enlil was Agade wiped out. At the count of 1,500 earth years did this happen. Now this is the account of the prophecy by Galzu to Enlil in a vision given. About Marduk's supremacy it was, how a calamity to survive a man to choose. After Marduk, Amun became kingship in the second region, disintegrated, disorder and confusion reigned. After Agade was wiped out, in the first region there was disorder, confusion reigned. In the first region, kingship was in disarray. From the cities of the gods to the cities of man it moved about. Enugi, Lagash, Urim, Kish, Ison, and to faraway places kingship was shifting. Then Enlil, with Anu consulting, kingship in the lands of Nanar deposited. To Urim, in whose soil the divine heavenly bright object remained implanted, kingship for the third time was granted. In Urim, a righteous shepherd of men, Nanar as king appointed. Namu was his name. Equity in the lands Namu established. To violence and strife an end he made. In all the lands prosperity was abundant. It was at that time that in the nighttime Enlil a dream vision had. The image of a man to him appeared, bright and shining like the heavens he was. As he approached and by Enlil's bed stood, Enlil the white-haired Galzu recognized. In his left hand a tablet of lapis lazuli he was holding. The starry heavens on it were designed. By the 12 constellation signs were the heavens divided. To them with his left hand Galzu pointed. From the bull to the ram Galzu his pointing shifted. 3 times the pointing he repeated. Then in the dream vision Galzu spoke up and to Enlil thus said, "The righteous time of benevolence and peace by evil-doing and bloodshed will be followed. In 3 celestial portions the ram of Marduk, the bull of Enlil, will we place. One who himself as supreme God has declared supremacy on earth will seize. A calamity, as has never before occurred, by fate decreed will happen. At the time of the deluge a righteous and worthy man must be chosen. By him and his seed will civilized mankind, as by the Creator of all intended, be preserved." So did Galzu, the divine emissary to Enlil in the dream vision, say. When Enlil from the nighttime dream vision awakened, there was no tablet beside his bed. Was it an oracle from heaven, or did it all in my heart imagined? Enlil to himself wondered. To none of his sons, Nanar among them, nor to Enlil did he of the dream vision tell. Among the priests in Nibriki temple Enlil of celestial savants inquired. Tirhu, an oracle priest, to him the high priest indicated. Of Ebru, of Arbakad, the grandson, he was descended. 6 generations of Nibriki priest he was. With the royal daughters of Urim's kings they were intermarried. Get yourself to Nanar's temple in Urim, the heavens for celestial time observe. 72 earth years is the count of a celestial portion. The passage of 3 thereof carefully record. So did Enlil to Tirhu the priest say. The prophesied time he made him count. While Enlil the dream vision and its portents pondered, Marduk from land to land went. Of his supremacy the people he was telling. To followers gain was his purpose. In the lands of the upper sea and the lands of Kienji bordering, Nabu, Marduk's son, was the people inciting. To seize the 4th region was his plan. Between the dwellers of the west and the dwellers of the east clashes were occurring. King's host of warriors formed, caravans ceased going, the walls of cities were raised. What Galzu had foretold indeed is happening, Enlil to himself said. Upon Tarhu and his sons, of worthy lineage descended, Enlil set his gaze. This is the man to choose, by Galzu indicated, Enlil to himself said. To Nanar, without the dream vision revealing, Enlil to his son thus said. In the land between the rivers whence Arbakhad had come, a city like Urim establish. A home abode away from Urim, let it for you in Ningal be. In its midst a temple shrine establish. The priest prince Tarhu in charge thereof appoint. By his father's word abiding, Nanar in the land of Arbakhad the city of Haran established. To be high priest in its temple shrine Tarhu he sent, his family with him. When 2 celestial portions out of the prophesied 3 were completed, did Tarhu to Haran go. At that time Namu, the joy of Urim, in the western lands from his chariot fell and died. On the throne of Urim, his son Shulgi, he him succeeded. Full of vile and eager for battles Shulgi was. In Nibruki himself high priest he anointed. In Anuki the joys of Inanna's vulva he sought. Warriors from the mountain lands to Nanar not beholden, in his army he enlisted. With their help the western lands he overran. The sanctity of Mission Control Center he ignored. In the sacred 4th region his foot he set. King of the 4 regions himself he declared. About the defilements Enlil was angered. About the invadings Enki to Enlil spoke. The rulers of your region all bounds have exceeded, Enki to Enlil bitterly said. Of all the troubles Marduk in the fountainhead, Enlil to Enki retorted. Still the dream vision to himself keeping, Enlil to Tarhu attention turned. Upon Ibrum, the eldest son of Tarhu, Enlil cast the choosing gaze. A princely offspring, valiant and with priestly secrets acquainted Ibrum was. To protect the sacred places the chariot's ascents and descents enable, Enlil Ibrum to go commanded. No sooner did Ibrum from Haran depart than in that city Marduk arrived. The defilements he too had observed, as birth pangs of a new order he them deemed. From Haran on the threshold of Shumer his final thrust he planned. From Haran, at the edge of Ishkar's domains situated, the raising of armies he directed. When 24 earth years of his sojourn in Haran had passed, Marduk to the other gods, of whomever descended, tearfully an appeal made. Confessing his transgressions, but insisting on his lordship, to them he thus said, O gods of Haran, O great gods who judge, learn my secrets. As I girdle my belt, my memories I remember. I am the divine Marduk, a great god. In my domains as Ra am I known. For my sins to exile I went. To the mountains have I gone. In many lands I wandered. From where the sun rises to where the sun sets I went. To the land of Ishkar I came. 24 years in the midst of Haran I nested. An omen in its temple I sought. Until when, about my lordship an omen in the temple I ask. Your days of exile are completed, to me the oracle in the temple said. O great gods, who the fates determine, let me to my city set my course. My temple, Isagil, as an everlasting abode establish, a king in Babili install. In my temple house let all the Anunnaki gods assemble, my covenant accept. So did Marduk, confessing and appealing to the other gods his coming announce. By his appeal for their submission the Anunnaki gods were disturbed and alarmed. To a great assembly, counseled to take, Enlil them all summoned. All the Anunnaki leaders in Nibruki gathered. Enki and Marduk's brothers also came. About the happenings all of them were agitated. Opposed to Marduk and Nabu they were all. In the council of the great gods accusations were rampant. Recriminations filled the chamber. What is coming no one can prevent. Let us Marduk's supremacy accept, Enki alone counseled. If the time of the ram is coming, let us Marduk of the bond heaven earth deprive, Enlil in anger proposed. To obliterate the place of the celestial chariots, all except Enki agreed. To use therefore the weapons of Terra, Nergal suggested. Only Enki was opposed. Of the decision, Earth to Anu the words pronounced, Anu to Earth the words repeated. What was destined to be, by your decision to undo will fail, so did Enki say as he departed. The evil thing to carry out Ninurta and Nergal were selected. Now this is the account of how fate to destiny did lead. How, step by step, some in long forgotten times taken, the great calamity made happen. Now let it for all time be recorded and remembered. When the decision to use the weapons of Terra was made, to himself Enlil 2 secrets kept. To no one before the terrible decision was taken did Enlil the secret of Galzu's dream vision reveal. To no one until the fateful decision was made did Enlil his knowledge of the Terra's hiding place disclose. When despite all protestations the council to use the weapons of Terra permitted, when Enki, anger and distraught the council chamber left, in his heart was Enki smiling. Only he knew where the weapons were hidden. So did Enki think, for it was he before Enlil to earth had come, who with Abgal in a place unknown the weapons did hide. That Abgal to the exiled Enlil the place disclosed, that to Enki was unknown. When Enki the second secret heard, in his heart a wishful thought he harbored, that after such a long sojourn the weapons Terra would have evaporated. Little did Enki expect the long sojourn a calamity as never before known on earth to cause. Thus, it was that without Enki needing, Enlil to the 2 heroes the hiding place disclosed. Those 7 weapons of Terra in a mountain they abide, to them Enlil said. In a cavity inside the earth they dwell, with the Terra to clad them is required. Then the secret of how the weapons from their deep sleep awaken, Enlil to them did reveal. Before the 2 sons, one of Enlil, one of Enki, to the hiding place departed, Enlil to them words of forewarning said, Ere the weapons are used, by the Anunnaki must the chariot's place be vacated. The cities must be spared, the people must not perish. In his skyship Nergal to the hiding place soared, Ninurta by his father was delayed. A word to his son alone Enlil wished to say, a secret to him alone reveal. About the prophecy of Galzu and the choosing of Ibram to Ninurta he told. Hot-headed is Nergal, make sure that the cities are spared, that Ibram is forewarned, to Ninurta Enlil said. When Ninurta at the weapon's place arrived, Nergal from the cavity had already them brought out. As their Mies from the long slumber he awakened, to each one of the 7 Nergal a task name gave. The one without rival, the first weapon he called, the blazing flame he named the second. The one who with terror crumbles he called the third. Mountain melter the fourth he called. Wind that the rim of the world seeks he named the fifth. The one who above and below no one spares was the sixth. The 7th with monstrous venom was filled, vaporizer of living things he called it. With Anu's blessing were the 7 to Nergal and Ninurta given, therewith to destruction wreak. When Ninurta at the place of the weapons of Terra arrived, to destroy and annihilate was Nergal ready. I shall kill the son. I will annihilate the father, Nergal with vengeance was shouting. The lands they covet will vanish. The sinning cities I will upheaval, so did Nergal enraged announce. Valiant Nergal, will you the righteous with the unrighteous destroy? So did Ninurta his comrade ask. The instructions of Enlil are clear. To the selected targets the way I will lead, you behind me will follow. The decision of the Anunnaki to me is known, Nergal to Ninurta said. For 7 days and 7 nights the signal from Enlil the 2 awaited. As was his intention, when his waiting was completed, Marduk to Babili returned. In the presence of his followers, with weapons armed, his supremacy he declared. 1,736 was the count of earth years then. On that day, on that fateful day, Enlil to Ninurta the signal sent. To Mount Mashu Ninurta departed. Behind him Nergal followed. The mount and the plain in the heart of the 4th region Ninurta from the sky surveyed. With a squeezing in his heart, to Nergal a sign he gave. Keep off to him he signaled. Then the first terror weapon from the skies Ninurta let loose. The top of Mount Mashu was a flash it sliced off. The mount's innards in an instant it melted. Above the place of the celestial chariots the second weapon he unleashed. With a brilliance of 7 suns the plain's rocks into a gushing wound were made. The earth shook and crumbled. The heavens after the brilliance were darkened. With burnt and crushed stones was the plain of the chariots covered. Of all the forest that the plain had surrounded, only tree stems were left standing. "It is done," Ninurta from the skyship, his black divine bird, words shouted. The control that Marduk and Nabu so coveted, of it they are forever deprived. Then to emulate Ninurta Nergal desired. To be Era the annihilator his heart him urged. Following the king's highway to the verdant valley of the 5 cities he flew. In the verdant valley where Nabu the people was converting, Nergal as a caged bird to squash him planned. Over the 5 cities, one after the other, Era upon each from the skies a terror weapon sent. The 5 cities of the valley he finished off. To desolation they were overturned. With fire and brimstone were they upheaveled. All that lived there to vapor was turned. By the awesome weapons were mountains toppled. Where the sea waters were barred, the bolt broke open. Down in the valley the sea's waters poured. By the waters was the valley flooded. When upon the city's ashes the waters poured, steam to the heavens was rising. "It is done," Era in the skyship shouted. In Nergal's heart there was no more vengeance. Surveying the evil handiwork, the 2 heroes by what they saw were puzzled. By a darkening of the skies where the brilliances followed, then a storm to blow began, swirling within a dark cloud, gloom from the skies an evil wind carried. As the day wore on, the sun on the horizon with darkness it obliterated. At nighttime a dreaded brilliance skirted its edges, the moon at its rising it made disappear. When dawn the next morning came, from the west, from the upper sea, a storm wind began blowing. The dark brown cloud eastward it directed, toward the settled lands did the cloud spread. Wherever it reached, death to all that lives, mercilessly it delivered. From the valley of no pity, by the brilliance's spawn, toward Shumer the death was carried. To Enlil and Enki, Ninurta and Nergal, the alarm sounded. Unstoppable, the evil wind, death to all delivers. The alarm Enlil and Enki to the gods of Shumer transmitted. Escape, escape, to them all they cried out. Let the people disperse, let the people hide. From their cities the gods did flee, like frightened birds from their nest escaping they were. The people of the lands by the evil storm's hand were clutched. Futile was the running. Stealthy was the death. Like a ghost the fields and cities it attacked. The highest walls, the thickest walls, like floodwaters it passed. No door could shut it out. No bolt could turn it back. Those who behind locked doors hid inside their houses like flies were felled. Those who to the streets fled, in the streets were their corpses piled up. Cough and phlegm the chests filled, the mouths with spittle and foam filled up. As the evil wind the people unseen engulfed, their mouths were drenched with blood. Slowly over the lands the evil wind blew. From west to east over plains and mountains it traveled. Everything that lived behind it was dead and dying. People and cattle, all alike perished. The waters were poisoned. In the fields all vegetation withered. From Eridu in the south to Sippar in the north did the evil wind the land overwhelm. Babili, where Marduk supremacy declared, by the evil wind was spared.